I'm very impressed that people are coming out because there's a war going on in the Middle East. There's a war going on defenseless people that shouldn't be going on, and it's not because many people think, well, okay, Israel is doing this, but it's doing it only because our country, the United States of America, is allowing it to do it, is backing it, and is saying, just like the Senate, which on July 17th voted 100 to 0. Oh God, 100 to 0 to support Israel and its so-called right to defend itself. And this, of course, this is just it's just incredible that this kind of thing is happening in the face of the facts. And I'm glad that you people are following the news and seeing what is really happening. And I became involved in this back in 1957 when I saw the news coming in about the June 1967 war, and I could see that U.S. policy, the pronouncements that were coming out of the White House and out of Congress, were something completely different from the fact that I'm talking about the facts that were coming out in the New York Times and the mainstream media, and I recognized that there was a big contradiction here. And unfortunately, today we're talking about almost 40 years later, or over 40 years later, we're still facing this big difference between the reality and what goes on in Washington. So we've got to change that. I want to make an observation on the way here, because I just came back from South Africa, and some of you may know that you can see the support is growing day by day. So the more that Israel does of this, the more that there's going, people are seeing through this, and we are going to turn things around. Believe me, we are. Anyway, I just came back from South Africa, and a few years ago I was one of the original signers of the Cairo Declaration, which is a declaration that was led by South Africans in a meeting in Cairo, and it was an international document declaring that there must be a boycott, divestment, and sanction campaign launched worldwide against Israel's occupation of the Palestinian territories, and I was one of the 128 original signers of that document, and I'm proud of that. And I want to make the point that you may think that if individuals, even many of us put together, decide to boycott Israeli goods, that it's not going to be enough to make a difference, and then there's also the other side which has all this purchasing power, and they can do an anti-boycott. Well, that doesn't matter. What is really important, and this is ultimately what brought the South African apartheid regime down, was not that we had that the international BDS campaign had such a damaging impact on the South African economy that they gave up. No, that's not it. The point is that the BDS campaign that was launched in 1987 against the South African apartheid succeeded because it raised awareness. It said that around the world we are not going to tolerate apartheid. It must end, and it won't end until, and we won't stop the boycott until this ends. Until it ended. Of course, it was mainly because of the struggle of the South African people. Now, going back to South Africa today, I can look back and see what are some of the parallels between South African apartheid and Israeli apartheid. And it's more than just some words here. We're not just talking about separation between peoples and a wall. We're talking about policies that are relatively recent. South African apartheid doesn't go back to the beginning of the last century. It's relatively recent. The real apartheid begins in 1960 with the passage of the of the a law that would systematically exclude African Americans and colorists and Asians from mixed communities. And so, beginning in 1960 and was actually implemented in the 70s, there was a systematic bulldozing of entire communities to physically remove populations of blacks, populations of colored, and populations of Asians from the racially mixed centers of South African cities. Okay, that was apartheid, and that's exactly what has happened since 1947 in Palestine, right? So both of these don't go way back in time. They're relatively recent, and of course, in the case of Israel-Palestine, the systematic expulsions of Palestinians have been much more draconian, because now it's not just for the reversal of the fall of apartheid, but in South Africa that blacks can move. But even with the Group Areas Act, when the Group Areas Act was implemented, blacks were excluded from living in the places that they live, but they could still move around. Okay, there was still a pass system, but they could still move around. Palestinians cannot even move around, right? If your residence is in the West Bank, you cannot go to Israel proper without a permit. For the residents of Gaza, there's no permit. A resident of Gaza cannot go to Israel, cannot go to the West Bank, cannot go to Egypt. Okay, and they're trapped in this tiny piece of land. The land area of Gaza is less than the land area of the city of San Jose. 1.8 million people. Right? And so these are the parallels that I saw between South African apartheid and Israeli apartheid. They're much more than I had really realized. And of course, the Palestinians are suffering a form that, as Desmond Tutu said, is much worse than anything that he had ever seen in South Africa. So if that is the reality, then why doesn't our Congress see the light? Why doesn't don't our elected officials see the need to stop support for Israel and stop giving Israel $3.2 billion of military aid every year? Now, the Congress, the House of Representatives, was talking about introducing a bill to add another $250 million to the $3.2 billion that the U.S. is already giving. So it's making it even worse. Well, obviously, as long as the U.S. keeps on giving this military aid, Israel isn't going to stop doing what it's doing. So it's our responsibility. The problem is here. We can solve it. We can solve this conflict by stopping the military aid to Israel. So what does that mean that we need to do? It means that we need to ramp up the BDS campaign as a means of raising public awareness. That's the primary goal of BDS, is to raise public awareness. And then go and talk to our representatives in Congress and tell them how we feel, that the votes that we're seeing in Congress on this issue are unacceptable. They don't represent us. So anyway, thank you very much for coming out. I know there are more demonstrations like this that are planned over the weekend, and we'll hope to see you there. Okay, thank you for coming.